Robert A. Lutz, Vice Chairman, General Motors Global Product Development.
Bob, every time we get together, we talk about fuel economy, emissions, E85.
Yep.
Supreme Court has just come out saying that they're going to have carbon CO2 restrictions. How's that going to affect you guys?
Well, we don't know because we haven't really had a chance to digest the ruling. But I think the view of our top lawyers at this point is that portions of it may be positive, portions may be negative, and some may be neutral. A potential positive is that it now might be regulated at a federal level, and that would preempt every state from doing their own regulation, which would be the worst of all possible worlds. Because let's be honest, CO2 grams per mile is exactly the same as legislating fuel economy. I mean, it is exactly the same process, and unlike carbon monoxide or unburned hydrocarbons or oxides of nitrogen, which can all be absorbed by a catalytic converter, there is no way to get rid of CO2. CO2 is directly tied to combustion, including the combustion in our own bodies. And I am exhaling copious amounts of CO2 as I speak to you now. And so I think whatever the EPA does with regulating CO2 as a pollutant, they have to understand that by so doing, they are regulating fuel economy.
Okay, well, let's talk about fuel economy and CAFE, because they've had CAFE requirements since the 1970s to get off the dependence of foreign oil.
Right.
Now, I've done studies. I'm sure you've done studies.
Of course, we've all seen those. It's completely ineffective. It's a totally failed strategy.
We have practically doubled the amount of oil that we are importing.
Yeah.
What do we do? How do we get Congress to realize it doesn't work?
I'm not sure. I'm getting to the point where I believe maybe it doesn't even matter whether they realize it or not. They may just be in favor of a politically expedient solution, which is just make the car manufacturers substantially increase the fuel mileage or fuel efficiency of their cars. I will tell you this 20% number, or 5% a year over 4 years, in the first place accumulates to 30, is a number that we have now been studying for about 3 weeks intensively with a team of really hundreds of people of how we would do it. And the answer is, we don't know. We don't think there is any readily available technology to get conventional gasoline-powered cars of any size class to 30% more fuel efficiency than they are now, unless there is one way that is relatively feasible, and that would be to install the General Motors two-mode hybrid system in every car and truck we produce. But guess what? That system today costs well in excess of $10,000. And under the most optimistic assumptions in high-volume manufacture, we might get it down to $7,000 or $8,000 per vehicle, which means we would be adding $7,000 or $8,000 to every vehicle produced and sold in the United States by General Motors. You know what that means? That when these vehicles come out, the public isn't going to buy them. They're going to say, thanks very much, I'll keep the one I've got.
So you've got E85, which people are now saying, oh, it's pushing up the price of corn for the poor people, or you've got to do something like the two-mode hybrid, which is going to make the poor people not able to afford a car in either case.
But you have to be, rather than being for an incremental technology approach like this 5% a year, hugely expensive and largely ineffective, as you yourself said, I would much rather adopt and see Congress adopt a transformational approach. What does it take to get rid of large amounts of petroleum usage in huge chunks, and then start giving credits for things like Chevrolet Volts, which would use almost no fossil fuel, two-mode hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and give us enough credits for those to where we wouldn't have to throw all that expensive technology at the rest of the cars. Another transformational approach would be a national E85 program where the government and Congress would really get behind creating an E85 infrastructure, push cellulosic alcohol. Because if we got cellulosic and had a really big government push on making sure that there was widespread distribution of gas stations, and then they asked us, say, well, you guys do less than half your vehicles with E85 capability, we're going to have to ask you to do 100% of your vehicle. We'll say absolutely.
Because it only costs about $100 a vehicle.
That's maybe 100, 200, but that's something that the public could still absorb, or even if we had to, we might have to absorb it. But that's feasible technology. Plus, the effect it would have on imported oil and CO2, because as you know, on ethanol, the CO2 that's used in production is reabsorbed by the plant growth of the next crop. So it just makes all kinds of sense, and I know what I'd do if I were Emperor of the United States.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion next time, Bob. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.